At this hour, we repeat, these are the facts as we know them.
And that's when she looked in the rearview mirror.
Some technology from another dimension, another world.
You're still afraid.
I don't know what it was.
No sign of life left except...
This will scare you.
Hello, my name is Shannon Brown, and this will scare you. My guest today is Angelina Ramirez. She's an actress, writer, and producer, and she has a comedy horror short premiering in 2021. She'll also be releasing a horror short online around October 1st, just in time for spooky season. So be sure to keep your peepers peeled for that. So welcome, Angelina. Thank you for being on the show today.
Hi, thank you for having me today, Shannon. I'm so excited. I love spooky season. It's my favorite.
Ooh, so I have a question for you. Do you like theme parks?
Theme parks, yes. Well, like Disneyland, Universal Studios. But when it starts to get into like the big roller coasters, like not Knott's Berry Farm. Knott's Berry Farm is good too. But what's the other one? Magic Mountain?
Like Six Flags?
Six Flags. I called it Magic Mountain. How old am I? Six Flags. Then yeah, so that's a little bit out of my comfort zone there.
Today, both of our stories involve theme parks, and the second one, we actually will be touching on Disneyland. So we've got some creepy
I love
tales.
it. Oh, Disneyland. That sounds so fun.
Yeah. So, 2 weeks before Christmas in 1976, the cast and crew of The $6 Million Man were filming on location in Long Beach, California, which is not too far from us.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
It was a super popular TV show about an astronaut who is seriously injured when his spaceship crashes. The government then puts him through surgery, which rebuilds several parts of his body with machines, making him cyborg-like.
Oh.
His machine parts give him this superhuman strength and speed. With these new powers, he goes to work for the Office of Scientific Information, battling evil for the good of mankind.
Sounds like RoboCop.
Yeah. So as a kid, we always said we can rebuild him, we can make him stronger, but I never knew what it was from. Apparently it was the theme song or the intro for this show.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So that's just a little bit of context for people who didn't watch this growing up. So in this episode, it's called The Carnival of Spies.
Mm-hmm.
The $6 million astronaut cyborg man is investigating a German scientist.
Ooh, okay.
The trail leads him to a traveling carnival. Astronaut cyborg man uncovers an elaborate missile launching device that is disguised within several carnival rides and is located in close proximity to the test flight of a new B-1 bomber.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So Laugh in the Dark was the attraction they were shooting at in Long Beach. Now, throughout the set, there were these animatronic pop-ups and, set pieces.
Yeah. I love those. You know how they have those that move back or jump out at you? Is that what you're talking about? Like those?
Right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so they had these things to pop out. Laugh in the Dark was, I believe it was kind of a little bit of a haunted house ride.
Oh, yeah, those are fun. Yeah, those old school ones.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it was there to, these pop-ups were there to kind of give you a little fright. And they had, little mannequins and set pieces all over to really set the scene.
The mannequins are always the scariest, I feel like. I don't know why, but I feel like the mannequins come to life at night.
Wow.
Oh, no!
I think this was meant to be for me to tell you these stories today. Because
yes. This scares me.
During filming, someone from the crew tried to move an especially emaciated-looking dummy that was spray-painted a glow-in-the-dark orange.
Uh-huh.
For 4 years, it had been hanging from the gallows in a back corner.
Oh.
It would even sway in the wind generated from the ride.
Yuck.
But this day, as the crew member moved it, there was a dry snap.
What?
They now held the dummy's arm in their hand, except the arm didn't belong to a dummy.
Oh, no.
The unfortunate crew member noticed that in the center of the arm was a human bone surrounded by desiccated muscle tissue.
Oh, I knew you were gonna say that. I was like, oh no, this is gonna be like torn muscle and oh, gross.
Yeah. Now, you and I both know it is uncommon for mannequins to have bones in them, and thus the cops were called. The medical examiner determined that this was a mummy who died in the early 20th century from
What?
gunshot wounds and was embalmed with arsenic, the same kind used in Abraham Lincoln's corpse.
You know what? That's so weird. I was gonna say the mannequin at Disneyland is the like Abraham Lincoln one, or like the I think it is, but there's like an Abraham Lincoln one there, and
Yeah.
he's the mannequin animatronic guy. I was gonna
hmm
reference that earlier, and now you just said it. Like, oh, it's so weird.
There's going to be like a lot of like red string relating to these stories today where it's like, and that happened there, and what about this?
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, I'm always yeah. I'm relating it already. I'm like, oh my god, I can see this.
So inside the mummy's mouth was a penny from 1924 and ticket stubs for a sideshow and Louis Sonny's Museum of Crime. It was determined that this was the corpse of a man named Elmer McCurdy. Elmer was killed in 1911 during a shootout with authorities when they found him drinking stolen whiskey in a barn. After he died, no one came forward to claim his body. With no friends, no family, the funeral home over-embalmed him, thus mummifying him, and propped him up on display in the funeral home window.
Oh, weird. So
Yes.
crazy. Like, why would they do that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure people, if there are people 100 years from now, they'll look back and be like, people 100 years ago were weird.
That's like
Just as we look back at 1911 and we're like, what were you doing?
that's like taxidermy for humans.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
people came from near and far to see Elmer's corpse. It's also said that at one point, the funeral director's children even put roller skates on him and dragged him around outside to scare onlookers.
Oh my gosh. That's so weird.
Yes, it is. It is very morbid and odd and highly goth, I think.
Could you imagine, like, as a kid, like, you're walking down the street and you're like, Dad, what's that? And there's a guy on roller skates. It's just like stiff and like, is that a mummy?
Yeah, just eyeballs staring straight ahead.
Yes.
Pennies pouring out of his mouth.
Oh my god, that's too weird. I'd be like, Dad, take me home.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm not going outside anymore.
Exactly.
So after 5 years on display, some guy showed up claiming to be Elmer's brother and demanded that the body be given to him for burial. That turned out to be a lie, and Elmer was then put into a freak show under the name the Oklahoma Outlaw.
Oh.
He was
God.
passed from carnival to carnival and even appeared in wax museums, haunted houses, and was used to promote the 1933 movie Narcotic. So after all of this, he was even used, as a prop
Like
at an AMC,
Yeah, like his body just kept being I'm surprised, like that his body just was like pretty good shape then to like being pushed around.
Yeah,
different
and well,
places.
the photos really show in the beginning he did look like a human, and then
Yeah.
slowly he looked more and more. I mean, he was mummified. He did look more and more like a mummy. And then, all of this went on for about 60 years, and each
Oh my
time
gosh.
he was passed to a new attraction, a bit of his story was changed and lost. So by the time he reached Laugh in the Dark, people didn't know he was human.
Oh,
He
that's
was
so
called the 1,000-year-old man, not knowing he was a real corpse in his 90s.
weird. Wow.
So, yeah, it's insane. And on April 22nd, 1977, Elmer was finally laid to rest in Guthrie, Oklahoma. To ensure no one got a hold of his body again, they poured 2 feet of concrete over his casket before topping it with grass.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's very intense.
Yeah, I'm just like, what? This is so it's one of those stories that you're like, did this actually happen?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it
it
was
did.
not that long ago.
I know. I'm like, what? how is this even possible? Well, I guess I could see it. Okay, I guess I could see it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if it were like the 1800s, I would maybe pass it off as being like, well, it was the 1800s, but this was the 70s. Like,
Yeah.
they had a real mummified corpse in their ride.
I know, and like they didn't even know it. Well, I guess you know what? If you're like one of those carnival workers, you just like go into work, you assume like the manufacturers or whatever, the
Mhm.
creators of the ride, like they put everything in there and they know when to fix it or when it's going to break down. But you never go and like I don't know, test the parts or anything like that, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I feel like you kind of just make sure that stuff's not broken and it's safe to use. And, if that all checks out, then why
Then
would
you're
you go
good.
opening up, prop pieces?
Yeah, but sometimes like you want to like if you see one that you are particularly drawn to, you kind of want to like go and like touch it. But so
Mhm.
imagine like if you ever did that, you were like touching the real mummy. Ew.
Well, yeah, I mean, imagine all of the employees who had like moved this man over the years, then realizing it was a man. It was
Yeah,
a dead
thinking
body that they had been handling.
yeah, like thinking it was like a real like just like a set piece or like a prop, like all those other ones that you see for Halloween. And then
Hmm.
you have this is a real actual body that you've been moving around this whole time and be like, ah, oh my god,
Yeah,
I never want to go work at a carnival again.
yeah. It's I couldn't imagine it. But the show Ghost Adventures visited a place called the Stone Lion Inn, which
Oh,
is situated 3 miles from McCurdy's gravesite. The inn is believed to be haunted by Elmer McCurdy and the spirits of the children who originally occupied the building when it was a home. It's alleged that the owner of the inn was performing rituals at McCurdy's grave, and she's even purchased the plot across from McCurdy's so that she can be buried near him when her time comes. Now,
did,
I personally believe that if ghosts are real, it's unlikely that Elmer McCurdy's spirit would haunt this building because he hadn't visited it, or at least it wasn't documented that he did.
yeah, yeah. And then that's kind of strange. The late, like she had no relation to him or anything, right? She just wanted to be buried next to him.
Yeah,
Just,
I think she like learned of his story and was fascinated by it. And then of course,
mm,
it is sad to think that a person didn't matter to anyone. No one came to claim his body. No one
yeah,
cared to take care of him, and then he went on this nightmare spree for 60 years.
yeah. His body was like not at rest for many, many years. So I feel like by now his spirit would be like, all right, I've been roaming around this earth. I'm ready to rest.
Yeah, I'm time to punch out.
Yeah,
And
I'm leaving this earth, this
yeah.
place.
So if the idea of being on a ride and unknowingly passing a mummified corpse creeps you out, or becoming the mummy whose body is passed around for years and spray painted sounds scary, you are right. It is not good. You may also think that this is a one off event or hope that it is, but the happiest place on earth is also home to dark clubs.
Oh no! If it's the Abraham Lincoln one, I'm never going to see that president presentation again because I've seen it before, and if it's in that place, I'm gonna freak out.
I don't know if this might be more surprising or less surprising, but Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean ride, built
Oh,
in 1967, was the last ride whose creation was supervised by Walt Disney.
hmm,
Before the passenger boats were completed, Imagineers pushed him through the attraction on a dolly and asked for his feedback. Walt loved it and happily noted that each time guests go through, they're going to hear something new and different. Building the ride required intense collaboration between many departments and ended up costing $15 million,
my gosh.
which is about $106 million today.
Yeah, yeah, that's so expensive. Ah,
The design team was unhappy with the outcome of the prop skeletons. They just couldn't get them to look real, and this ride was supposed to be immersive. What is a props department to do when they just can't nail the authenticity of pirate skeletons? Well, they contact friends at the UCLA Medical Center and acquire skeletons and skulls from the anatomy department.
oh no! So these like people that donated their body to science, or like,
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm no expert on it, but there's kind of like a murky history with acquiring bodies and skeletons.
Yeah.
Some of them are donated to science, and like
Mhm.
saying I, Bob Skeleton, am signing over my body to medical science, but they're also sometimes acquired through less scrupulous means.
Oh
You know,
no, grave robbing. Just kidding.
yeah, I mean, I'm not here to say that about UCLA, but just in the history of it there has been grave robbing and even sometimes murders to
Oh
provide
my
a body.
gosh, that's so.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, we don't want to.
so
Yeah.
pretending for this story that everything happened through UCLA, on the up and up,
On the
but
up and up. Yes.
yeah. So they got real skeletons and skulls, and over the years, as fake skeletons improved, new Imagineers replaced the real ones with props.
Hmm.
Imagineer Jason Sorrell says that the real skeletons were later returned to their countries of origin and given a proper burial. However,
Oh no.
there's much debate as to how many remains were returned.
Oh.
Disney fanatics insist that there are 3 real skeletons still on display to this day, one of them being the skull on the headboard of a bed.
Oh, I wonder. Okay, because I mean, I love Disneyland so much. So I wonder which bed is it? The one Oh, I know which one it is. I think it's the one where it's got all the coins and they're like, they have the treasure out and it's coins and then it's like a big skull too. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. I know which
So
one. Oh,
there are thousands, if not millions, of people who have passed by these skulls through the ride thinking that they were decorations when really it was like someone's aunt or son, you
oh
know?
my gosh. Yeah, and then you like one, is that the only one or are there multiple ones now that I'm thinking throughout the ride? I'm like, okay, so there's that one, but there's so many other like places where they
Mm-hmm.
have skulls and bones. And then did they do bones too? Like,
So the information that I found, it was specifically skulls and skeletons, but I mean,
mm,
you know, a single bone is part of a skeleton,
it's
so who's
true.
to say?
Yeah.
And there's a ton of a ton of discussion on what people think is really still there, and it's speculation. There's no confirmed, confirmation of these real bones still being there by Disney today, but
Yeah, I mean, they
you know,
obviously wouldn't say. They'd be like, "No, there's, everything's good. We remodeled the ride, and it's
right.
all clean fun."
Yeah. Now, I believe in a dignified death, and I do think it's really sad that Elmer's corpse was never treated with respect and then used for financial gain. And even now, it's still used kind of as a paid attraction in this murder mystery tour that the inn does. And
Oh, so
yeah,
they
it's kind of
still
sad.
now they have it kind of like as a mock-up where people can come and see, or
So that inn that I mentioned, they do a
yeah.
murder mystery tour, or at least
Mm,
they did a few years ago, and it's like this whole show they do, at the inn, and parts of it can sometimes land you at his gravesite.
I
But,
see.
this is still someone profiting off of his death.
I know. Is he still like part of the like carnival? Still seems like you
Right,
can't get past that. Come
right.
on, Elmer. We need to get you past.
Yeah, it just kind of it makes me feel a certain way, you know?
Yeah, I feel sorry for him that he never like he ended up being like posthumous, that he was like made a freak or whatever. Like
Yeah,
his body will never, maybe his body will never rest because of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And as much as I love Disney, the park and the movies,
Hmm.
Disney is gonna Disney. We have to acknowledge that they do not have a clean record in terms of employee treatment, racism, and colonization. In 2013, they actually tried to trademark Dia de los Muertos.
Oh, because of the Coco movie.
Yeah, but they
Yeah.
tried to trademark the actual term and holiday for
Oh,
themselves.
yeah, yeah. Actually, Coco hadn't come out yet then. I don't think, was it?
No, it was in anticipation of the release.
You're right,
And
and I think they tried to trade, yeah, because they can buy it, and they think, oh, we're a big corporation, and we're just going to slap the Disney name on it and make it good.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's baffling that they thought it was okay to use deceased people as decor, and in terms of how we treat death in the United States.
yeah, because Dia
Eh,
de los Muertos, for like, I'm Mexican, so for the Mexican community, it is a big deal for us that we, make an altar and show our loved ones that we still are thinking of them, that their life mattered. And so that is a big, tradition for us, and for it to become some sort of like commercial conglomeration like that is just not what it's about at the heart of it. At the heart of it, it's about your loved ones and showing them that respect, you know.
right, it's like a sacred holiday and family tradition.
Yeah, yeah, very like my family, we do it every year, and we'll, put up a little altar and for our loved ones that have passed, and you know, and yeah, it's just part of not only our culture but also, part of tradition.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I mean, even going back to the skeletons being displayed, even if these people, signed their bodies over to science or whatever, I don't think that they listed put my bones on display to entertain families on a boat ride, and I'm sure
yeah,
there are people who think that that would be a great way to go. There are tons of people who attempt to or successfully spread ashes in the parks, but it's just a little odd that these Imagineers are supposed to be the top of the top,
yeah.
best of the best in design and creativity, and the best they could come up with was use real
Use
skeletons.
a real skeleton. Like they couldn't think of anything else. I mean, even if they'd used, I mean, there's so many different ways you can make something look more realistic, but I guess they
Mhm.
were trying to go for so authentic that they had to go for the real thing. But no, they lets the dead rest.
Yeah.
Leave them be.
So I know you have some stories for us too, and a little bit of background on the
Yeah.
Mexican culture. Is
Oh
that correct?
yeah, yeah. So obviously, like I said, I'm Mexican, so it's funny thing. I was just telling my mom because in Arizona, where I'm from, there's a lot of canals. So, and the canals, like growing up, you just, you pass by the canal, and my mom, being mom and dad, they'd always be like, don't go to the canal at night because, they were always afraid like you were gonna, like, I don't know, step in and drown or something. So, one of the folk tales of it is I'm sure you saw, like, there was a movie recently called The Curse of La Llorona. And
Hmm.
so La Llorona in Mexican culture is the weeping woman. And so what happened, or the folk tale goes, is that she was, I guess I'm assuming she was a single mom, something like that, and she drowned her children in the water. Um, and when it gets late at night, she wails. She has like a veil over her, and so she wails at night for her children, and she just, keeps crying and crying for them. She had the two children. I think she had a boy and a girl, and she is looking to claim children anytime that any children go by the water. So if you
Hmm.
go near the water near nighttime, then she's there looking for her children, and you will drown too, or she'll drown you as well. So when I would be like riding my bike, or, after school, my mom, you know, there weren't cell phones at that time or anything. So my mom would just be like, be careful because you don't want to come home too late, and make sure, she'd always remind me, make sure don't go by the canal because La Llorona is going to get you. And I was like,
Ugh.
La Llorona. And she would always be, and I'd be like, what? She's like, the canal is a place where she walks by the canal, and she's wearing her veil, and she's looking for girls like you, and she'll pull you into the water. She's going to scream and she's going to pull you into the water. That terrified me as a kid. Like, I was like,
It's scary.
what? I was like, this woman, this crazy woman, and she's gonna be scary looking. Like, my mom was like, she's gonna, be like witchy looking and dead and undead. And I was like, oh my God, I never want to see this woman. So there was one time where I was riding a bike, and I was being defiant to my mom. And I was like, I'm gonna
Isn't that always
show
how it
her.
goes?
Yeah, I was like, I'm
You're
gonna
like being
show
bad
her.
and something bad happens.
Of course. So I was like, I'm gonna show her. I'm gonna stay out later than I should. And it started getting dark, kind of. It was like 6:00, 6:30, but the sun was already like setting. And I had gone on for a longer bike ride than I had anticipated. And I took the bike by the canal. I was like, I'm gonna take it by the canal later at night.
Just
And
being super
so,
brazen.
yes. And so I start like riding my bike, and it's getting dark now. And I like looking towards the water, and I'm like, I'm not scared. And then it's like getting darker, like the sun literally set, and I was like, okay, I got to get out of here soon. So I start pedaling faster and faster, and then my bike, like the bike broke down. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to walk my bike. And so I start like walking my bike. And you know how you imagine, I don't know, my imagination just started like playing tricks on me, but I could hear like footsteps or things in the water. So I was like, I better hurry. So I started running. I ran with my bike. My mom and dad were standing out in the yard. And my mom was like, I told you you shouldn't go late at night. I was like, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. I was like, I think I saw La Llorona. I was like, she was after me. Anyway, so I like ran all the way home, and my mom and dad were so upset at me. I never went by the canal with my bike ever again. Like, I ended up actually like passing by the canal more recently on a walk, and I still to this very day like am terrified. Like, it was getting late during my walk. I ran again because I was like, I can't be by this canal anymore.
Wow.
I don't even know why. I'm like, I don't know. That's why.
That childhood stuff sticks with you.
It does stick with you. Yeah. So there's that story of like the Mexican folklore of La Llorona. My mom and dad also have another Mexican story. So again, in Phoenix, Arizona, where I'm from, there was a tale of this ballroom called El Calderon Ballroom. And a lot of people in the Phoenix area know of this ballroom. It was like a dance hall, back in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and people would just go there and have social dances and stuff, and it was fun. They would go and drink and whatever and party. And so one of the times they were having they were going to have a dance or whatever, and so the tale goes that there was this young girl, and she wanted to go to the dance, but her parents were very strict with her. So they were like, no, mija, you can't go to the dance because, you got to stay home. Like, we don't want you to go. And she was like, come on, like, I just want to go. And so they were like, no, you can't go. And so she was like, fine, so she stayed in her room. Well, her parents, go to bed or weren't watching, and she snuck out of the house. She got dressed up, and she was like, I'm going to go anyways. That's the defiance again.
Yep.
And she was like, I'm going to go out, and I'm going to go to the dance because I want to see my friends, and maybe I'll meet a boy, That's why her parents were strict with her. They didn't want her to go out and, be around boys and all that. And so she goes to the El Calderon Ballroom, and she shows up, and she's there with her friends, and she's dancing, and then she's like sitting down, and she was approached by a man, and the man was, like a tall, debonair looking type of man, very handsome, and he asks her if she would like to dance, and she was like, sure, like, of course, like, wow, this beautiful man wants to dance with me, wow, okay. So she goes out onto the dance floor, and he, whisks her away, sweeps her off her feet. They're dancing, they're having a great time, great conversation. He just knows all the right things to say. And so then it's getting like towards the end of the dance. Her friends are like going to be leaving, and everybody's going to be walking out. And she goes off with the stranger man, and she's speaking with him, and she's like, well, I think I better go home now. Like, my friends are starting to leave. And he's like, well, you don't have to go home yet. Like, it's still early. Like, let's continue to talk, or come with me, and
Hmm.
we can go somewhere. And she was like, I think she was probably still thinking about her parents. Like, she had left home, said she snuck out, and she was just kind of like, well, I don't know. And he was like, come on, don't you want to, be whisked away? Don't you want to get away? And she was like, I don't know. So she was unsure. Well, then, she was like, no, I better go. So she turned away and she starts walking away, and he grabs her arm, and she turns to him, and the tale goes is that he had the look of the devil, and he turned into the devil. And she was so frightened that she ended up escaping, and she ran off back to her friends. So she ended up escaping. So the story goes that that man continued to do that to many other girls throughout the years. And anytime you went there, you might dance with the devil.
I mean, at least he was a good dancer.
I mean, he could sweep you off your feet,
Yeah.
and then sometimes like people would add on that, he had hooves, or, they could
Hmm.
see his,
His
horns,
tail.
or yes, whatever. So, but they do, and that place ended up being demolished. Um, but at the time, it was funny because after they heard that tale, they hung up a photo of the devil to show that he had been there and that he was there somewhere.
That is great.
I know. So,
I love a place that like has fun with like, the supernatural rumors about their business.
yes, exactly, exactly. So that's the El Calderon Ballroom, and my whole family. They, like I said, they grew up there, and so they love to tell that story over and over again about the dancing with the devil, and at night, and that's another reason not to sneak out of home, and make sure
Yeah.
you're in bed and not going out with strangers. Stranger danger.
Yeah. I mean, I've been realizing like so many of the stories are basically just cautionary tales.
Yeah,
Like listen to what your parents say or something bad could happen.
yeah, exactly. And then I guess the one last one that I have, is that, for me, again, I was living in a house here, and I moved in Burbank, California, and I moved into a house here, and my ex and I were living in the house, and for some reason there was just like we came into the house, but there was always like a presence there, like something was in the house with us.
Hmm.
I thought it was a woman, like an older woman, because I feel like sometimes when I would like not be looking, I could see her pass by, like walking down the hallway, or just like wandering around. And so I'd be like, oh, it's okay, it's just the woman of I called her the lady of the house,
Hmm.
because it was her house and I was the visitor. And
It's very
so
respectful.
um I was like, oh, and I felt like sometimes I'd be like, oh, I don't know what to do, and then something would come up, and she'd be like, this is your option. So I think we got along very well, like me and whatever the woman was, but she did not like my ex. She would continually, like, things would fly off the bathroom, like his toothbrush. One time he called me, and he was so scared. He was like, can you come? Are you coming home soon? I was like, well, I'm at work. Like, I'm finishing up a work shift. And he was like,
Hmm.
because something just flew at me. It was like his water bottle or something he just put down, and he walked away, and it hit him in the back. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
and then multiple times, like throughout the night, his glass would break by his head. Like he would get like a glass of water or something and would just like all of a sudden, I'm like, again, we literally lost like 8 glasses because of that.
Oh my God. Did you ever
Always.
like see it happen?
No, but I would be like, hey, why are you moving your glass? And he'd be like, I'm not, I'm sleeping. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I heard your
Oh, so it was
glass
in the
move.
dark?
Yeah, because we would be sleeping. And, it'd be like always around the same time too, like midnight, 1 in the morning, the glass would break. And there was about like good, like 6 to 8 glasses that broke because of that. And so I was just like,
Oh
I
my
don't think
God.
the lady likes you. Like, I don't know what the deal is. And and that's why I was like, oh my God, okay, well, we gotta just deal with it because I like this place and whatever. So then one time I had my cousins over, they were visiting from Arizona, and I hear something like fall, like boom, come from my bedroom. And I was like, oh, and I was like, I told you guys about the lady, right? And they were like, yeah, they're like, don't scare us. And I was like, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to tell you, like, there's something in the house.
She lives
And
here.
yeah, yeah. Because other times, like I said, like, not just that, but like pictures off the wall, like near my ex's head, his head, it would try like fall on his head. And I don't
Wow,
know.
she really didn't like him.
She didn't like him. So I was like, "What is that?" So I was like, "Oh, it's nothing." I was like, "You guys don't worry. Let's get dressed and we're gonna go out to like the Walk of Fame or whatever we're gonna do." And so I was like, "I'm gonna go take a shower." They're like, "Okay," you know. So I went to go take a shower. They went to the other bedroom, and I was like, "I really want to know what that noise was." So I like go and investigate. My luggage had been brought out of the closet and pushed onto the ground.
Oh God, I just got chills.
And I was like, what the heck? Like, why is my luggage out? And I was like, that's what that sound was. So I didn't want to scare him, but I was like, okay, guys, I was like, I know what the sound was. It was my luggage was brought out of the closet. They're like, it wasn't out of the closet. I was like, no, my closet was shut and my luggage was out and on the ground. And they're like, let's get out of here. So we like ran out of the house. We were frightened. And so then we came home, and luckily my ex had been home already, but I didn't tell him about the luggage.
Mhm.
So then, didn't think anything of it. Again, I was like, okay, that was just weird, but maybe I don't know. I left it out. I was trying to make any sort of explanation for this. And so like as progressively like it started getting worse and worse. Like the glasses were breaking more often. The stuff was falling near his head. She was like throwing stuff at him. And then the luggage just kept being brought out over and over and over again.
Like she like wanted you to leave him, maybe.
Yes, yes. And so I was like, so one of the times finally I was like, okay, I was like, what are you trying to tell me? Are you trying to tell me like I need to move back home? Are you trying to tell me like I need to move from the house? Or are you telling me like I need to leave? Like I wasn't understanding at the time
Mhm.
because I was like, there's what are my other options?
Mhm.
And so we finally like ended up moving out of that house, but I never like understood why until I went to the next house and weirder things started happening at that house that I was like, okay, she was trying to tell me to leave that whole time.
Oh my
So
God.
I was like, that's why she kept bringing out my luggage, which is what, see, you got it. But at the time, I was like, what is she trying to tell me? I don't know.
So do you think she followed you to the next house, or like the next house just also had activity?
No. So the next house just was because my ex, he was deep into substance abuse, and I had no
Oh,
idea.
oh
And
my
so
God.
we caught it, but it was like in that house, it was so dark and heavy because of his issue that
Mhm.
it it like I don't know if he brought in like dark energy or what, but like I went to go to this place called House of Intuition here in
Mhm.
in Los Feliz, And I need like sage or something. The lady was like, whoa, you have really bad energy. She was like, you need like a paranormal team or something. Your house is under attack. And I was like, what?
Oh
And
my God.
she was like, here's my card. She was like, we'll do it for free. We just, want to get you guys like clean house. And at the time, like I said, I didn't know what was going on with him. So I was just like, I think I just need sage or something because like I just moved into this new house and there's like really bad energy. And no, it was like there was a dark presence in that house because of what he brought in with his negativity or that like
Holy cow.
energy that he had. So I like that's what I wrote that like horror short about was his like that, you know, it's when you have something so dark, it like attacks you too. So like I felt
Yeah.
like heavy in that house. And so I should have listened to the lady of the house from before, but
Oh, that
yeah.
is so intense. I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you were able to get through it.
I got
And
through
it's,
it, and unfortunately, I did have to end up leaving that. Obviously, he's my ex now, so, but I did have to end up leaving that situation. It was just so dark, and oh God, that energy was not good. Whatever he
yeah.
had that he was dealing with was really, really dark, bad, negative spirit or whatever that was in the house. There would like be like growling sometimes or scratching on the walls at night. I thought there was like a raccoon or something under the house. I kept calling the landlord. I think he thought I was crazy. I was like, there's a raccoon or something under the house or a possum or a cat. I was like, it scratches at night. And then he was like, no, I checked. He was like, it's all covered. Like he kept showing me. And I was like, no, there's something under there. And I kept hearing it. And they'd be like, rah, oh. I'm like, oh my God, what is that?
Oh
You
my
know?
God. I mean, there are like, I don't know if it's like a paranormal psychologist or what have you, but there are people who believe that our own energy, like if it's a lot of like really
Mm-hmm.
serious anxiety or depression or whatever dark thing you're going through, that you can actually manifest these occurrences in your home. And sometimes it might not always be like a haunting. It could be that we are putting so much of our own negative energy out there that these things start manifesting, or perhaps like, the spirits are feeding off of that energy, and
Yes,
that's what's causing the
exactly.
problem.
Yeah. And that's why I said I would hear like, like sometimes or like whispering, or like I said, the scratching, like scratch, like at night, and I'd be like, what is that? And then I was only sleeping like an hour or two at night because of it. Like
Oh
literally for
no.
months. We only stayed in there 6 months because I couldn't stand it. I couldn't. I was like, we got to get out of here. So we actually ended up moving back to Arizona, and I was like, we got to get out of this negativity. And
Mhm.
so yeah, we ended up moving, and then the relationship broke from there. But that darkness is so terrifying. Like I still
Yeah.
have like nightmares from when I was living there, and the scratching and that growling and that like that just horrible feeling of negativity. Oh, it was so bad.
Yeah. It's terrifying. Did you actually have the paranormal team like come in at all, or?
So I ended up trying to sage the house on my own because I was like, there's no way I'm gonna have a paranormal. He's gonna think I'm nuts. Like my
Mm-hmm.
he already thought I was nuts in the other house. Like he's gonna think like I'm gone over the top. Like, and sometimes it was so weird because when I was there with him and he'd be like asleep because he'd be like in his like fog or whatever he was doing, and I felt like somebody was sitting on my like lap or on my back. So I'd have to like run, like sit outside and be like, and take a breath because I felt like somebody was sitting on me, like literally like somebody either like was on my shoulders or like on me. And I was like, I got to get outside because anytime I left the house, I was fine. But then when I came back, that whatever the the entity or whatever it was, the energy was just like the weight of my shoulders, and it was causing me like sleepless nights. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't, you can't when you're like that
Yeah.
terrified, or when you have that dark of an energy in a house. Yeah, somebody else's demons definitely can manifest into your life. Is right.
Yeah. I mean, I have also been in a relationship with someone who had a substance issue, and they're, until it's very hard to realize it when you're that close to it, what's going on.
Yeah.
And after that relationship ends, and hindsight's 2020, you do realize, like, wow, I felt so heavy and bad, and now I realize why.
Yeah.
It's wild. It
It's
is very wild.
so crazy. Well, I haven't felt that way since. So,
That's great.
that's
That's great to hear.
but that dark energy is, like I said, is bad. But the scratching and the growling was the scariest,
Yeah,
scariest
I mean,
part.
it sounds like the first entity was like, girl, here's your stuff. You should head out. I'm going to
Yeah.
help you pack. And the second, your second house was just like, all right, the first lady gave you your luggage, and now we're going to start growling.
Yeah,
Like,
now we're gonna start doing all this. Yeah, so I ended up like saging the house. I tried other things. Like I said, I'd open up windows and like be like, get out, get out. Like I'd be like, get out of our house, get out, leave him alone.
mhm,
I'd even like just out loud, I'd be like, leave him alone. I remember like doing that and like closing my eyes and like really like trying to get into like some meditative state where I'd be like, leave
mhm.
him alone. And then it'd feel good for like, a little while. And then it's like, boom, like come back. And it
Wow.
was like, felt like it was like attacking him, like attack, attack, attack. And like sometimes I feel like I'd look at him and I'd be like, I don't, I don't even know who that is. Like I was like, who is that? I don't see you.
That is so crazy. So,
Yeah.
is it safe to say that you do believe in, the supernatural, paranormal
Oh yeah, for sure.
realm?
For sure. Yeah. I feel like since a kid, I feel like I've always had kind of like a sixth sense. I've been able to like, I feel like, I mean, there's people that of course disagree, but like me personally, because I do believe in it. And, I grew up Catholic, very religious Catholic.
Hmm.
But I always had that like ability to see things that weren't seen by like the normal eye. So just growing up, I would always see like there was a man, a Native American man in our house. And I'd be like, what is that man doing standing in the living room, Mom? And she'd be like, what man? I'm like, that man over there by the window, you know?
Wow. And
And
he's just like, hello, little girl.
he'd just be
And you're the only
standing
one who could
there.
see.
Yeah, he usually just be standing there with like, like Native American, like just a look. I could tell he was Native American. And yeah, I just knew. I was like, that is a Native American man standing in my window there. And so I'd always be afraid to go to that window like all the time, because I was like, what if he's there and he's walking around? Is he gonna
Yeah.
get me, or is like, what does he want? And then yeah, just every time, like no matter where I went, I've always been able to see the unseen. Like people are always like, what do you? And I'm like, well, yeah, there might be something in your house, but it's okay. Like it's good energy, or
It's so interesting. Like, I've talked to a few people now through the podcast who, one woman saw a man. He was like, just a regular guy on the street, but she kind of had this vision or premonition of him, saw him fully covered in blood.
oh,
And then, like, it kind of like snapped back, and he was, regular. And
mm-hmm.
she was like, I just started crying. Like, it was just so horrifying to see. Another woman she went to her friend's house, like, up in the Hollywood Hills, and saw a woman walking by the window. And when they both went up to the window, it was like a 2-story drop. There was nowhere that woman could have been
Yeah,
walking. And I just find it so interesting, like, are these things, a one off for some people? If so, why is it like a one off? And for people who see this stuff their lifetime, you know, are you maybe more open or more tapped into it than other people who see something once or twice, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So that's why I thought, like, when I was in that house, I was like, well, I have a pretty strong intuition, premonition. I was like, I can probably, I'm so strong myself. I was like, I can probably like get rid of it myself. No,
Mhm.
that's how strong like that energy was, that even me, like with all the experiences I'd had over the years, seeing stuff like that and being around it, I wasn't enough for that. Like I was like powerless against that, whatever that was. But
Wow.
yeah, and even in like my new place now, like I moved and I have a new place. It's from the 1920s, so obviously
Mhm.
100 years old, a lot of history here. There's just like I'll see things like in the middle of the night, like my thing fell, my purses fell, like because, and I saw someone like run by, and I was like, oh, I was like, hmm. But the people here like don't necessarily stay in one place. They like move around a lot. They're very mobile, and at nighttime they're very like they walk around. I actually like came home and the purses were down again.
So
So they must have.
do you like feel nervous or feel fearful around them, or is it
um
just like we all share this home?
Sometimes, but because of like through the years that I've just been seeing them so much, like sometimes if I can tell like it's a really bad energy, yeah, it's definitely terrifying. But when I can tell like it's a family, or like here, I think it's like a family.
Hmm.
There's like a mom and a dad and a little boy, uh, but I can sense that they just want to coexist because this is their place. They're not like murderous, like, intense. They're not going to come and murder you in the middle of the night or anything like they do in the TV shows. They just want to coexist, They just
Yeah.
want to. This is their space. They're unfortunately here as well, and we're just coexisting. And as long as like your energy's good and stuff, then they're fine. And that's what I've learned over the years, like just from seeing the different things that I've seen. Just as long as you're coexisting, you're kind, respectful, like they they're not gonna bother you. But
Now, the people who are in your current home, do you think that they are like an intelligent haunting, or do you think it's one of those things where they're just kind of replaying, the things that they used to do? They don't really necessarily know that you are there now.
exactly. Like I don't think they necessarily really realize they're like somebody else is here with us. Like they know I'm here, but it kind of feels like it's so weird. But to me, it kind of feels like they don't know that they're not in this like reality here. Do you know what I
Oh,
mean?
so
Like
they don't know that they're on the other side of
on
the
the other
veil.
side.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so they're just kind of like walking around doing their daily tasks or walking around at night, but they're very active because the same spot, they keep like knocking over my purses or whatever, but in the same spot. They pass by this because that's where the door is. So they keep like passing
Oh,
by, going by the door.
so maybe, when they lived there, nothing was in the way, and that was just like that was their footpath.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like I put that in their footpath, so they just keep knocking it down. So I'm like, now I'm like, well, maybe I should move that. Because they're just gonna keep knocking it down every time. So the one
And
time
in
though
their
was
mind, they're
like
like,
3 in the morning though.
we just keep
Yeah,
tripping on something, and we don't know why.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So
So, have you ever
I
been
don't
able
know.
to communicate with anyone, or hear anyone like speaking?
Yes, yeah, um, um, yeah. I can hear them. They try to get message to me. It's very the thing is like because it's like a telephone, I guess. You know how you like play the game telephone and you like tell, and by the end it's like not the same message as it was intended to be. By the
Hmm.
time it like reaches me, it feels like I get a message, but I'm like not clear on it. It's blurry or it's like not coming through all the way. I'm like, I don't know what you meant. So repeat it again. And then sometimes if I can focus enough, I can hear, but I think that's like for more of like even like psychics and stuff that can like really tap into that like, you know, area of their mind or whatever it is. But yeah, it's so crazy because like I can kind of get it through, but it's very fuzzy. So sometimes I'll get messages. I'm like, oh, this person's like, this person needs help, or they are asking me to do this, or like change. I don't know. I remember one time I was like, my light went out, and they kept telling me like change the light, and I was like, okay, I'll change the light in the closet. Okay, you're in the dark. Okay, I get it. You want me to change the light? So I kept
That
getting
is,
that. Like I
so
kept kind of hearing that.
they even have like a honey-do list, like even in the afterlife. They're just like, all right, take out the trash, change the light bulbs.
Yeah, yeah. Like the lady of the house, she would be like, I remember like I felt like she'd like be watching me like cooking or something. And one time I dropped like pork chops or something on the ground, and I was like, because I spent so long on it. Like I literally
Oh,
spent like forever, like 2 hours cooking this darn pork chop. And she was like, it's okay. Like I could hear like her messages saying like, it's okay. Like just pick it up and maybe like wash it off or something, and it's going to be fine. Like it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. And then I remember
wow.
like looking over and being like, you're right, it is going to be fine. Like I was being hard on myself, let me just clean this up and it's going to be fine. It's just dinner.
Wow, like she
So
was so
yeah,
nurturing.
she was very nurturing. She was an older woman. I imagined her with a little bun on her head. She was an older woman, but she liked to wear like a little bun on her head and like a, not a muumuu, but like, like a
Yeah,
nightgown.
house dress.
Yeah, like a house dress with some slippers. Um, she would just kind of like putter around the house, and sometimes she would like sit, and I feel like she would be very content when I would be like just at rest or like watching TV, or
Hmm,
like, we coexisted pretty well. She liked
you
me.
were like her buddy.
Yeah, we were buddies, and it was just like whenever he got home, she'd like, I could feel like her like look up like he's home again. Oh
She's
darn
like
it.
annoyed at that roommate, but you were fine.
Yeah, yeah. She'd be like, "Oh, he's home again." But no, other than that, yeah. So the messages sometimes come through clear, and then sometimes it's like not at all. Yeah, you can't
Did they
understand.
do they ever ask you for like assistance or like try to communicate to a specific person, or like is there any like something scary like a threat, or are they just mostly, pretty innocuous?
Most of the ones that I've encountered have been pretty good because I try to, like I said, I try to put out good energy. So I think when I put out the good energy, they put the good energy back to me. Now, there, of course, yeah, there's been a couple that are, like I said, the one at the house where anytime I'd be like, get out of here, get out of here. That time where I was like, get out of here, get out of this house. And I felt it like pushing against me, saying, like, no, no, no. It just kept like in my head, I kept hearing, no, I'm not leaving. I am not
God.
leaving. And I've got a hold of him, and you can't do anything about it. And I'd be like, what do I do? Like, then I'd focus again. I'd be like, no, no, you can't do that. And then it'd be like, I don't care what you say. You're not having him. He's mine. Or, you know, it, I could hear like the dark messages coming from something. And it was, like I said, it would be fuzzy, but I'd just keep hearing no. Like it was like punching me in the face, like, no, no.
It's so scary and intense, and like, through all of that you're still expected to like go to work and drive a car and buy groceries and just be like a person in society.
Yeah, okay. I even had an even weirder incident too with that, is that so one of the times it was like a time that I had like tried to be like get out of the house. I kept saying it. Like I would physically say it out loud. I'd be like get out of my house or leave us alone. And then it'd come back stronger and be like no, I'm not leaving. And then one of the times I was home, and I had parked my car in front of the house, and the neighbor came and was like, "Excuse me, you parked in my parking spot." And I was like, it had a red Camaro or something like that. And I was like, okay. I was like, this is like our house, and this isn't your house. Your house is on the other side. And they were like, well, no, this is my parking spot. I park here all the time. And I was like, well, first of all, this is a public street, so like you can't just
Yeah.
park anywhere you want. And they were like, well, why don't you park in your driveway? I was like, because I felt like parking on the street today. I'm sorry. I didn't think I had needed your permission.
Yeah.
And so we got an argument. So then here comes my ex, and he was like, what's going on out here? And I was like, this guy is trying to tell me, like, this person's trying to tell me, like, I can't park here. And so they could, like, start arguing. I was like, and it was a she, actually, and she was like, you're gonna let him speak to me that way? She was like, I can't believe you would let a man speak to you like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna move the car. I was like, you have the spot. I really don't care. I've had some kind of day today. I don't need this.
Yeah.
So I got in the car. I moved in. I was like, I hope you're happy. And she was like, I hope you know you should never let a man speak to you like that. And she was like, don't ever let a man speak to you like that. And I was like, okay. I was like, I don't care what you're saying. Goodbye, goodbye, good night, good night. And she was like, and she kept saying it like over and over again. And I was like, good night. And so I just closed the door, and my ex came in with me, and I was like, God, I was already upset, like, over what was going on. And so then, like, the car, she had parked the car there, but then, like, the next morning, the car was gone. And every time, like, that car was a red Camaro that would stand out in your neighborhood. I never saw that car ever again. That woman, that car, nothing. Never saw it again. I was like deliberately looking for it, because I would, you kind of like, once that happens to you, you're kind of like, oh, I want to see that neighbor. Oh, they're home.
Yeah, you're like, where does she live?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, where they live. And I knew they lived like right around the corner. So I knew exactly where their house was, but never ever once did I ever see that car ever again parked in their driveway, parked in front of the house, parked in front of my house ever again. And that was like that was so strange. I was like, what? And then because she kept saying that weird thing, I was like, she kept saying, like, don't you ever let a man treat you like that. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And then when I like literally, like, she kept talking, and I just, like, she was saying all sorts of weird things. Like, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go in the house. Like, I don't even care. And so I walked into the house, and like, he came in with me, and then I never saw them again. Never saw that woman, never saw that car. If it was her parking spot, like, don't you think she would have been parking there that whole time? And I would have seen her every day. I had never seen her before that, and I never saw her after that.
That is absolutely bizarre.
Bizarre.
Like, was she like a manifestation of what was going on? Was she truly, like, maybe she was like a ghost neighbor or something? Or maybe, the lady of the house was, calling in reinforcements? Like, someone's got to help me drill this message into this girl's head.
It was so weird, because I never saw her again. And then I was like, I even thought, like, to this very day, I'm like, did I imagine that? Did that actually happen? Did I have that confrontation with that woman? Was I dreaming? Was that one of the times where I was, like, so sleep deprived that, like, I had this vision? No, I can see it. Like, I'm like, no, that definitely happened. That confrontation happened out in the middle of the street. I definitely talked to a woman in a red Camaro.
And your partner experienced it too.
Yeah. So I'm like, I didn't imagine that, but I never saw her again. So what was that?
Yeah, I mean, unless it's just like a traveling woman who empowers women,
I don't
like,
know.
does she just like go to neighborhoods across the country and be like, you know what, sister, stand up for yourself? Like, what could that have been?
I don't know what that was. And that was even weirder, is that, like, I had the confrontation with her first.
Yeah.
So that was weird. I don't know. It was all so weird. All that whole time, that whole 6 months of my life in that last house was just bizarre. Bizarre things happened like that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it is, like, I'm just trying to, like, pull it apart in my head, and I was like, okay, well, she was in her car. Maybe that lady was trying to get you to, like, drive away, maybe, like, fully leave or something like that.
I don't know. Or, like, I don't know. I just remember because of the overt color of her car. And, like, there's no way you could not see a red car out in front of your place, out of like all the silver and like the white cars, and there's a red car. You're gonna see that. It's gonna stand out. But I
Yeah.
never saw it again. Never saw it again. So
Like that, that's incredible. Have you ever done research into like the people who have appeared in your homes to see if like you could match them up with an actual person?
yeah. So the one with the Native American man, yeah. I mean, a lot of Phoenix there was, there was the Native Americans lived there, and they would have, like museums and stuff around our neighborhood because they would always find pottery and just like evidence that that they lived there and that was their village or whatever. And so we would find sometimes like pottery in the backyard or like pieces of things, and so we were just like, oh, this must be because of the Native Americans that lived here. And so we just assumed that that man had lived on that land because and he was just stuck there. That was his land, and still there.
Holy cow.
Yeah. But the lady of the house, um, there was a woman that had passed away in the place that we were living at, and so I don't remember what her name was. I think I looked it up and I can't remember now. But yeah, there was a woman that had lived there. Yeah, before us, and she was an older woman. So, but
Wow. So I guess you're pretty comfortable with all of this if it's been happening since childhood, right?
yeah. I mean, I didn't want it. Like, you never want to see the things, even though like I'm open. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a pretty open person. But when you're like 6 years old, you're not thinking like that. You're just like, what is that? Like, why is that there? You know? And
Hmm.
then everybody else is like, what are you talking about? Like, well, that thing over there, don't you see that person, or don't you see that happening over there?
So do other people in your family have this ability too, or are you kind of the lone wolf with this?
Well, so my dad gets like the same. He'll see like the same people as I do. So I'll mention, like when I was a kid, I would mention it to him. I'd be like, "Hey, Dad, there was this man like came," and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, okay, I saw him. Like I, yeah, you're right, you're right." And I'd be like, "Well, why didn't you tell me? Like that scared me." He'd be like, "Well, yeah, I want to scare you. Just things that's going on, and we just got to coexist." And I was like, okay, because I think my grandmother, his mom, my nana, she was very into like, not like witchy things, but like um cure-alls for like, she would go to like a curadora, is what they called it, in the culture. That's what they call it in our culture, like a curadora, somebody that is like not like a witch doctor, but something like that, where you go and you get like potions and home remedies. And she was very into like home
Okay. Like an
remedies.
herbalist, maybe.
Yeah, like an herbalist. And they call them curadoras in the Spanish culture, the Mexican culture. And so you go see the curadora, and get your home remedies, and they tell you, oh, try this with the candles, light a candle, crack an egg and see if it comes
Mhm.
out, and you'll see if you're haunted, or all sorts of little. So she would go to see the curadora, and she would have all sorts of like herbal things. So I don't know if she ever like did like spells or like like stuff like that. But I think she kind of like brought that into our family. And so I think she was the one that kind of started that type of, you know, stuff. So she liked yeah, like my dad said, she would use like papas on his forehead, potatoes, to take down a fever. Or like she was always like having him, I don't know, like wear the socks with the stuff like in
Oh
them or
yeah.
something to keep the feet warm and to like shut out the fever, or just different things like that. And then once she passed away, my grandfather, he had this home, and my mom said that like the floorboards didn't meet all the way, so there
Mhm.
would be gaps because it's an older home. and he would at night he would talk to my grandmother and be like, Maria, her name was Maria, and he'd be like, Maria, vete pa allá, like go away, I'm trying to go to bed. And then my mom said it was weird because sometimes she felt like she could hear like my grandmother speaking to him. It was so, she was like, it's
Wow.
very bizarre, but like, she had that, she just had that vibe about her. Like, I don't know if it's because of she, like I said, I don't know if she did like spells or like witchcraft but she did go to the curadora and she was into that. She was into the, like, not the occult, but like, like that type of living, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so, to me, it's just so cool and interesting and special when that goes back generations.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny that your grandfather was just like, listen, I've had enough of this. Like, I've dealt with it for how long? I'm trying to go to bed.
Yep.
Let's both go to bed.
Yeah, yeah. But my mom had always said that she was like, sometimes she'd be caring for my grandmother or my grandfather, and she could see between those floorboards. And then when he'd be like talking to my grandmother in the middle of the night, or like when he would get home, and he was tired, it scare her. Because my mom like is like totally like, she's like, I don't see that, like I don't see any of that, like. But she said she would be terrified, like, I'm like, Maria, no dejes pa allá, or like go away or go over there.
Wow. So it was like strong enough. Your grandmother was essentially strong enough for your mom to hear her.
Yeah, it's so weird. My mom was like, she's like, I don't know, I'd be asleep or something. She's like, but I could swear I could hear her voice. And she's like, I don't know if I was like asleep or what. She's like, and I don't have that intuition like you and your dad do. She was like, but that's how strong of like a presence she was, or like after death. Yeah.
That's incredible. It's so special that, you guys all have that connection with her.
Yeah, yeah, she definitely left that impression on the family. So now I have this like, connection that I didn't even, you know I had until when I was growing up, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll accept it. So I've just accepted it ever since then. Now it's just part of me. Makes me me.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with me and,
Yeah.
with our listeners. It's really incredible.
Yeah, it's good to, tap into your culture and look back on your history sometimes and find out what makes you you and you unique. So, like
Yeah,
sharing all
now I,
those.
I really can't wait to see your shorts.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You see the one. Yeah, they'll be fun for Halloween and spooky.
So for listeners, you guys can follow Angelina on Instagram at Angelina Ramirez, and helping both of us out with giving us ratings, reviews, comments on videos. All of that stuff helps more people like yourselves find our spooky videos and podcasts. And of course, you can find This Will Scare You on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Give us a follow and a like, leave a review, do the same for Angelina, and I hope everyone has a great day.